Now, Roddy Ricch was on top of the world just a few years ago. He had one of the biggest songs of 2020, rose from the bottom all the way up in the rap game, and was considered one of the most promising young rappers in the industry. But just a few years later, his name barely comes up anymore. He hasn't had a big song in a long time, and a lot of people have quietly moved on. What exactly happened to Roddy Ricch, and why exactly isn't he popular anymore? In this video, I want to break down the rise, the fall, and where things started going wrong for Roddy Ricch. Now, Roddy Ricch is a name or a face a lot of people recognize. Back in December 2019, he dropped his debut album, Please Excuse Me for Being Antisocial, a project that pushed him straight to the forefront of the rap game. But it was the song, The Box, that took everything to another level, dominating the charts in 2020 and turning Roddy into one of the biggest rising stars in hip-hop. But before all the fame, before The Box took over the world, Roddy Ricch was just Roderick Moore Jr., a kid from Compton with a dream. Inspired by artists like Speaker Knockers, Future, Gucci Mane, Young Thug, Roddy started rapping at just 8 years old. By the time he was 16, he was already making his own beats. At 14, he had a brief encounter with Kendrick Lamar, where he got a chance to rap for him, a moment that didn't launch his career, but left a lasting impact on his motivation and mindset. Roddy spent the next few years sharpening his sound, blending melodic flows with street-influenced storytelling in a way that stood out from the crowd. In 2017, he dropped Feed the Streets 1, a project that quietly started getting him attention in the music industry. Big names like the late Nipsey Hussle and Meek Mill caught wind of Roddy early, and it was clear he had something special. But it wasn't until the summer of 2018 that Roddy truly broke through to a wider audience. He dropped Die Young, a song he wrote the same night XXXTentacion passed away. The song served as a dedication to young artists like X and Speaker Knockers, but more importantly, it was a tribute to one of Roddy's own close friends, who had died in a high-speed chase around that same time. The raw emotion in Die Young connected with people immediately, and for the first time, Roddy was finally making real noise beyond just the West Coast. From there, his momentum only grew. An acoustic snippet of his next song, Every Season, featuring Einer Banks, went viral on social media. The song and music video dropped just a few weeks later. By the time he dropped his second mixtape, Feed the Streets 2, at the end of 2018, Roddy wasn't just an upcoming artist anymore. He was about to be one of the hottest new names in rap. The success of the mixtape led to Roddy linking up with the late Nipsey Hussle and producer Hit Boy for Racks in the Middle, a powerful track that not only honored Nipsey's real-life work ethic, but ended up winning Roddy his first Grammy for Best Rap Performance. Shortly after, Roddy was featured alongside Post Malone and Tyga on a song Whoa. He used that momentum and dropped Out the Mud, a street anthem that kept his core fanbase fed. But it was the song Ballin', his collab with Mustard, that really took things to another level. The song became one of the most popular rap anthems of that summer, earning Roddy another Grammy nomination. By the end of 2019, Roddy was ready for the next level in his career. After building a massive buzz, he dropped a series of singles, Big Stepper, Start With Me featuring Gunna, and Tiptoe featuring A Boogie with the Hoodie, all leading up to his debut studio album. And then on December 6, 2019, Roddy Ricch dropped Please Excuse Me for Being Antisocial, and this is when everything changed for him. The project did over 100,000 in first week sales, an incredible number for an artist who had just broken into the scene. After dropping Please Excuse Me for Being Antisocial, Roddy was definitely riding high, but it was The Box that took everything to another level. And the crazy part is that The Box wasn't even a single. It was just another song on the album that had blown up organically, without a big push or a major marketing campaign at first. It was only after the song started catching fire that Roddy and his label capitalized on a wave. The song's weird, playful energy made it perfect for TikTok, and that squeaky ER sound went viral. It wasn't a sample that Roddy pulled from somewhere. He came up with it on the spot in the studio, just feeling the moment. The raw, natural creativity made the track feel alive, unpredictable, and it gave people something to latch onto and turn into memes. However, while The Box was exploding, Justin Bieber dropped his new single Yummy on January 3rd, 2020, and a full-blown chart battle broke out between the two. At that point, The Box was already on its way to number 1, but Justin Bieber was plotting how to snatch the top spot from Roddy Ricch by any means necessary. Bieber and his team went all out trying to force it to number 1, posting guidelines telling his fans to buy the song multiple times. Stream it while you sleep, he said, and even reposting fan accounts that encouraged people to use VPNs to manipulate streams internationally. It wasn't just two songs competing. It felt like a battle between authenticity and desperation. I mean, Justin Bieber practically had his hands out like, yo, please stream my song. Please stream my song. Meanwhile, Roddy Ricch stayed quiet, at least in the beginning. But as Justin's tactics got more desperate, Roddy pulled a reverse psychology move, telling his own fans to go stream Justin's song in the middle of the battle. Despite that, Roddy eventually secured the number 1 spot on the Billboard Hot 100. In the eyes of the internet, Roddy became the underdog. When The Box went up against Justin Bieber's record for the number 1 spot, it wasn't just about music. It was a battle between authenticity and desperation. Justin's team was doing everything they could to manipulate the charts, while Roddy stayed silent and let the song speak for itself. That moment created a wave of hype around Roddy Ricch, not just as an artist, but as someone people genuinely wanted to win. But the thing about hype is it can create expectations that aren't always easy to live up to. Roddy had just beaten one of the most famous pop stars on the planet, and he did it by keeping it organic and playing it cool, which is almost unheard of. Rappers don't usually beat pop stars when it comes to numbers, but somehow Roddy Ricch pulled it off. Please Excuse Me for Being Antisocial was still growing during all of this, and it ended up becoming one of the biggest debut albums by a young rapper in recent years. And at the same time, the box spent 11 weeks at the #1 spot on the Billboard Hot 100. However, this is where things started to change for Roddy. After the release of the album, he took his foot off the gas. Between November 2019 and at the end of 2020, Roddy didn't drop any new music of his own. He was featured on a few records during that period, like Walk 'Em Down with NLE Choppa, which became a pretty big record, Gifted with Cordae, and the Lemonade remix. But as far as his own solo material, Roddy stayed fairly quiet. After the success of Please Excuse Me for Being Antisocial, the pressure on Roddy to perform was sky high. Fans weren't just excited, they were patiently waiting for the next classic, a project Roddy himself described as a masterpiece. In the summer of 2021, Roddy kicked off the rollout by dropping Late at Night, but the release felt underwhelming to a lot of people. Roddy hadn't been active for over a year and a half at this point, and when he finally came back, it didn't feel like he was coming with the same energy that made fans fall in love with him in the first place. Roddy has set the bar almost impossibly high with Please Excuse Me, a project a lot of people called a no-skip album. And honestly, Roddy's debut album was, I feel like, undeniably, it was fire. Like, it was great. 10 out of 10, at least to me, okay? So when Live Life Fast finally dropped on December 17th, 2021, it felt like Roddy missed the mark by a mile. The project got a lukewarm response from the public and moved 62,000 in its first week, a significant drop in numbers compared to how well Please Excuse Me performed. A big part of what's always made Roddy Ricch special was the emotion and hunger behind his music. On Live Life Fast, however, that passion was definitely missing. Instead of the raw, heartfelt songs fans expected, the project felt rushed, like Roddy had lost some of the fire that made people connect with him in the first place. It wasn't just people that thought the album wasn't that good. Fans started questioning if Roddy had lost what made him special. And when you're at the top, that's the last thing you want people thinking. By this point, the narrative around Roddy Ricch had shifted. People were saying he had fallen off. Still, Roddy didn't disappear completely. He kept feeding his fans between late 2021 and late 2022, dropping a few singles and a short EP that flew under the radar, and eventually the third edition of his Feed the Streets mixtape. But the momentum just wasn't there anymore. Feed the Streets 3 only sold 39,000 copies in his first week, and it felt like Roddy's numbers were dropping with every single release. At this point, people just weren't that interested in Roddy Ricch anymore. Between not having any big songs recently, the disappointment of Live Life Fast, long periods of inactivity, and newer, more exciting faces entering the game, Roddy quietly got left behind. And that's kind of been the situation ever since. He's still active in music, but the last time he dropped a project was back in November 2022, which means it'll be 3 full years without an album by the end of this year. During this time, Roddy's dropped a few singles here and there, but most of them have flew under the radar. One of the few exceptions is Survivor's Guilt, a very impressive song where Roddy opened up about where his mind has been ever since his decline in popularity. On the track, he directly addressed the fall off, talked about his battles with addiction, and touched on personal struggles like dealing with child support. Listening to this song, obviously it's clear that Roddy has been, dealing with a lot behind the scenes that people just don't really know about, right? Going from being on top of the world one day to fighting to keep momentum the next, that kind of shift definitely has to weigh heavy on you. I think the biggest reason for Roddy's decline can be traced back to the perceived drop in quality of his music. And perceived is the key word here, because his core fan base still supports him. But the world at large discovered Roddy during a time when everything was hitting at once. Please Excuse Me for Being Antisocial wasn't just good, it was excellent. And because of how high he set the bar with that album, the expectations for what came next might have been impossible to meet. Why Roddy Ricch isn't as popular anymore could be as simple as this. This is someone who had an extremely strong debut, but when the momentum from that album built up, he didn't fully capitalize on it. And by that being the long periods of inactivity after Please Excuse Me. But Roddy isn't the first rapper to blow up massively and lose that attention. This is obviously pretty common. Even the most talented artists go through it. The good thing for Roddy is that he made enough of an impact early on to the point where his name still holds weight. Even if he's not at the forefront right now, he still has a great foundation to keep building on. Roddy's currently working on his next album titled The Navy Album. We don't know exactly when it's dropping, but it could end up being the moment that changes everything for him again. At the end of the day, I think Roddy is a very talented artist, and personally, I believe he has what it takes to make a comeback. I like Roddy, but of course, time will tell. If you made it this far, drop a little like on this video. If you're new here, my name is Blacky Speaks. Nice to meet you guys. Thank you for subscribing. What do y'all think about this topic surrounding Roddy Ricch? I mean, I'm sure most people have heard about Roddy, and it's kind of crazy how big, Roddy was at the height of his career. I mean, The Box was just such a big record, right? And now we barely hear about Roddy Ricch. Honestly, I think it's really crazy how fast things can change. But that's of course the entertainment industry for you, right? That's the game. Do you guys still listen to Roddy Ricch? Are you paying attention to what Roddy's doing these days? I'm very curious to hear what you guys have to say, and I'll catch you guys in the comment section below. But most importantly of all, catch you guys in the next video, man. I'm out. Peace.